Good afternoon and welcome to this edition of the Digital Conversations webinar. The BusinessDay Digital Conversations is an initiative of the Legal Business Department of BusinessDay, which aims to engage stakeholders in the industry on communication surrounding legal affairs and how the legal industry intersects with the business environment. This particular webinar is part of a webinar series that we do in collaboration with the Nigerian Bar Association, Section of Business Law, Employment, Labor and Industrial Relations Committee. And in this particular webinar, the webinar series addresses fresh paradigms in employment law. How do you feature in the labor market post-COVID? What are the new innovations that are being imputed or being utilized to move forward in the labor market post-COVID? So we're very happy to have you with us. With us, we have our esteemed panelists and the moderator that will be handling the event today. I will hand over to one of my colleagues, Mr. Akin Ajiboye, who will be giving you a brief introduction to the panelists. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much once again. My name is Akin Ajiboye, and I welcome you to the webinar on gig economy in Nigeria, gig economy in the future of work. I'll be not as a profile of some of our panelists today, and I'll be starting off with Nku Olumide Ojo. Nku Olumide Ojo holds 2 decades of experience in strategic marketing and corporate communications, and she's an expert reputation and crisis communication manager. She currently works as regional head of marketing and communications at a financial service group in South Africa. And she is also the published author of The Pressure Cooker Lessons from a Woman at Work, which is a popular book, and you should get the book to read. And we're privileged to have her today on the panel discussing the gig economy, which is the future of work. And we also have with us this afternoon Chisom Obi Okoye. Chisom Obi Okoye is a senior associate in Persons and Grace, a leading law firm in Nigeria. Is presently a member of the Employment, Labor and Industrial Relations Committee of the Nigerian Bar Association, as well as the Employment and Labor Lawyers Association of Nigeria. He also co-authored the Nigerian chapter of the 10th and 11th edition of the Employment Law Review published by the Law Business Research Limited in London. In addition, he regularly contributes to Global Edge, an award-winning international employment law resource for legal and HR professionals, published by Sweb Pattenbergs. So we're privileged to also have Chisom Obi Okoye with us this afternoon. Moving on, I'll be introducing, reading the profile of Chinelo Chinwe Ekene-Awo. Chinelo has a diverse academic background. She holds a bachelor's degree in law from the University of Nigeria, master's degrees in international business law and military strategy and international security from both the University of Hull. She's currently undertaking a PhD research in cybersecurity international politics, specializing in international digital powers and implication of 5G technologies on national security at the University of Hull, UK. She equally advises on international investment regulations and practices. So we're privileged to also have Chinelo Chinwe Ekene-Awo with us this afternoon. My colleague, Benga Ige, will be introducing the other panelists. Benga, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Benga Ige, as you said. I'll be reading the profile of Dr. in no particular order. I'll start by Dr. Adeoye Adefulu. Dr. Adefulu is a partner in the law firm of Odujurin and Afolalu, with over 20 years professional experience spanning the field of petroleum law and policy, electricity law and policy, corporate and project finance. He obtained his law degree from the University of Lagos and was called to the Nigerian Bar in 1998. He also holds a master's degree from the Center for Energy, Petroleum and Mineral Law and Policy, CEPMLP, Scotland. Dr. Adeoye was the member of Nigerian Bar Association Technical Committee on Petroleum Industrial Reform and the managing editor of petroleumindustrialbill.com. Adeoye is the Secretary of Council and the chairman of the Training Committee of the section of MBA section of Business Law and was chair of the successful 2019 Planning Committee. Thank you, Dr. Adeoye, and welcome. We also have Esther Akino, sorry, Esther Akino Kawe. I'm sorry if I'm not getting the pronunciation very well. Esther Akino Kawe is the Chief Human Resources Officer of CHRO of the MTN Nigerian Communications PLC, a multinational corporation and Nigerian brand, a telecommunication brand. In this role, she provides leadership for the best-in-class people management solutions and practice aimed at driving outstanding employee experience and support the achievement of strategic business objectives. Esther is a transnational business leader with expertise in human resource management and over 26 years industry experience, spanning consulting services, education, banking, and telecommunication. An astute conference speaker, Esther facilitates human resource leadership and faith workshop. She loves reading, listening to music, and exploring new places. Welcome, Mrs. Esther Akinokawe. I also have the profile of Ms. Aisha Gaba. Ms. Aisha Gaba is a corporate health services, Veritax Capital Assurance PLC, a consummate professional with over 15 years of add-on experience in organizational development, intervention, system thinking, strategic planning, policy formulation and implementation, human capital management, customer service, and IT. Before taking up responsibilities at the Veritas Capital Assurance, Aisha demonstrated as a sterling leadership attributes as the head corporate services and at TAK Asset Management Limited, head embassies and airlines at UBA, and business development manager at Mainstream Bank Limited, to mention a few. She is a certified Lean Six Sigma Bank Black Belt, that's LSSBB practitioner, a fellow of the Institute of Credit Administration, an associate of the Chartered Institute of Management, ACIMP, member of the Institute of Strategic Management of Nigeria. Welcome, Miss Aisha Gaba. I also have the portfolio of, please, excuse me. Thank you. I also have the portfolio of Miss Bolanle Ibitola. Bolanle Ibitola is currently the Director of Resource at United Capital PLC, with oversight on all human resources and corporate services functions. She has on experience in strategic human resources management, especially in managing C-suite executives. Our core expertise includes performance management, managing diversity, employee relations, learning and development, organizational development. She holds a degree in English language and literary studies and literature from the University of Lagos, a master's in human resources from Middlesex University Business School, London. She's a member of, thank you very much, a profile of Mrs. Bolanle Ibitola. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ajiboye and Benga, for helping us go through the profiles. We'll try to edit this profile, but as you can imagine, these are very eminent panelists. So it was difficult, really. How will I put it now? Summarizing this profile. Well, I'm done with that. I think we go to the main reason why we are here today. And just to provide a bit of a background, in 2015, at the World Economic Conference, the World Economic Forum said that a confluence of technological, socioeconomic, and demographic factors would displace 5.1 million jobs across 15 major economies by 2020. And when they gave this prognosis, there was no pandemic. So, but if you put that in context with the pandemic, we're looking at about 25 to 30
Sorry
million.
to interrupt, Mr. Okpeku. Your mic is a little low.
Okay.
Can you increase the volume?
Yes. So, are you hearing me better now? Is it better now?
Yes, it's much better. Thank you.
So, by 2020, Forbes in 2018 did a survey, and the outcome was that by 2030, 43% of the workforce will be freelance workers. Now, in a recent paper by the Boston Consulting Group, it was interesting what they came up with. And the whole idea was that comparing work prior to this time and work of the future. And the outcome was that in the previous times, we lived or we worked to live. So you went to work, went through the commute, went through the rat race just to stay alive. But in the future, because of freelance, because of gig work, we would live to work. So you would do the work you want to do, how you want to do it, and are alive without having to work just to live, or you then live just to work. So it's quite interesting to put it out in context. But again, I was recently reading a book by Richard Susskind talking about tomorrow's lawyer. And if you think about it, the legal profession happens to be one of the most conservative professions ever. But the main thrust of that book was to say that even in the legal profession, as conservative as it may be, the way work will be done in the future, which is here with us, would drastically change from what we used to know. And so that brings us back to the topic, which is gig economy, the future of work. What really does this mean? And this is a word that's been bandied around. So what really does it mean in practical terms? What does gig economy and future of work entail? And so I would start with Esther. So I would say, Esther, you're highly experienced in the HR space and currently manage the HR function of one of the enablers of gig economy and the future of work. So as a concept, what does gig economy mean? What does gig economy actually mean in practical terms? If you can help us in 5 minutes to drill down this concept so we can have an understanding of what the concept is all about.
Okay, thank you very much, Ose. I hope we can all hear me.
Loud and clear.
Very good. Thanks so much for the introduction. I appreciate you, the Law Crest and BusinessDay, for the opportunity to participate in this webinar. It's very interesting, the question that you have asked, what practically does this word gig economy mean? And I know that it is fast becoming, a common topic, and there is some information gap. In my view, and also based on some of the books that I have read and experience that I've had over time, the gig economy actually epitomizes a labor market that is characterized by the prevalence of alternative work outside of the traditional corporate world of work. So anything, between employment and unemployment would fall within the gig economy. And in practical terms, it would include consultants, contractual arrangements. And when I say contractual arrangements, I mean someone or even an entity that has been engaged to provide services to another entity as a non-employee. Part-time jobs will fall within this category. Temporary assignments would also fall within this category. Freelancing, and you've used the terminology freelancing, even from the reports that you shared with us, will fall in there. But freelancing actually means that, someone is self-employed and hired to work for different organizations on particular assignments. A part of that freelancing will be self-employment, where someone works for themselves, whether as a freelancer or as the owner of a company rather than for an employer. You would also have what is referred to as side gigs, or some people will say side hustle, okay? And the concept of side hustle is that it is work that you perform in addition to your primary job. Some people have single side gigs, some people pursue multiple side gigs. I'm sure that if we were to take a poll of Nigerian workers across the spectrum of, maybe the corporate and public sector, you would find in all probability that a large proportion of workers have side hustles. Another practical example of the gig economy is on-demand work. And this is where people are engaged for work as and when needed. Examples would be electricians, Uber drivers, bike riders, makeup artists, graphics designer. The aim is really to ensure flexibility. At the end of the day, it is to save on cost as well and have less liability. Of course, all these different forms of gig economy attract varied compensation. Some are paid by the hour, some are paid by the service that they render. Some are even, paid standard monthly compensation for the entire duration of the contract. But you know what, let's face it, this gig economy is not new. We've always had contractors. We've always had part-time workers, independent consultants. The only difference is that the number is growing in leaps and bounds today, and we didn't have the terminology gig economy back in those days. Something, that is also fueling this change might be the fact that the more high-profile professional roles are moving into the gig economy. Those roles that you would have thought were permanent roles. For instance, it is commonplace now to hire top-notch engineers. My organization does that. Technology specialists, legal advisors, HR specialists, finance experts, and talents in many hard-to-fill roles as contractors, whether on a temporary basis or for project-based independent work that they are doing. In practical terms also, we need to know that this gig economy is disrupting work. It is disrupting work in terms of how we work, and especially the idea of job for life. I mean, there was a time people expected to work for one or two companies until retirement with appropriate benefits, including retirement benefits, but that view has shifted over the years, and more people are entering the world of work no longer expecting job security. So you find a situation where people hop from one job to another job, and in many cases, they are just interested in the autonomy and the flexibility that the work entails, because the concept of security of retirement benefits is fast disappearing. So people then can hold multiple jobs sequentially over the course of their careers. In some instances, people move in 3 to 5 years. In fact, for the millennials, they don't even wait 3 to 5 years. In the first instance, you will find them in the gig economy, but when you do find them in traditional, roles, within 1 or 2 years, they're ready to move to some other jobs within the world of work. And a large proportion of the working population today are in the gig economy. While there is, the tendency for the gig economy to generate higher income in the long run, however, there is also the tendency for them to have lower income over the course of their gig economy careers. And so for the gig economy, identifying how to create income security is very important for them. If I still have some time, I would like to quickly touch on the factors that are fueling or contributing to the rise of the gig economy. And I think the first one is the dwindling availability
market.
I think Esther, we lost Esther there due to poor connection. I think we'll just move on and then come back to Esther. She did make a comment about moonlighting and freelancing in Nigeria, and actually about survey. And I would say that a recent survey carried out by Philip Consulting did come up with the fact that over 70% of the millennials and Generation Z workers interviewed in Nigeria claim to be moonlighting. And moonlighting means they have their primary job and then there's a side hustle, like you mentioned. And that's just to put that in context. Okay, so while we wait for Esther to try and join us, Aisha, this is for you. From your experience as a seasoned HR practitioner, what do you think are the reasons for the reemergence or sudden popularity of the gig economy? Considering the typical nature of work patterns, how true is the argument that gig economy does not encourage loyalty and commitment?
Okay, thank you for having me. Okay, this is a good platform for us to discuss this very interesting and dynamic way of workforce. And just to draw from what Esther has been saying about the millennials and the way the work is going nowadays, is about flexibility. That is part of the resurgence for the gig economy to exist nowadays. People are looking out for flexibility, and it's not just limited to the millennials or the Gen Zs. You know, even the baby boomers and other generations now are looking out for flexibility. Now, that has even been buttressed more by the fact that the pandemic has actually made us realize that there is life after work. And having been locked down with your family and not having to come to work, even the workaholics have come to realize that, oh, okay, so I can actually not go to a 9 to 5, be at home and still get things done and still juggle family and work at the same time. So people are increasingly need to strike that balance and own it. Because under the regular 9 to 5, it's a bit more difficult to work within those hours and still have time for your family. If not that, you're going to have to take some time off and take your annual leave and some other forms and avenues for leaving work and then paying attention to your life. So it's very important now for us to embrace that and find a way of welcoming this new economy. The gig economy, yes, has been around, like she rightly pointed out, and this has been since the global recession. But again, the resurgence, like I mentioned, has been coupled by the digitization, has been coupled by the fact that, okay, people's attitude to work has changed now. People are looking for more freedom. They want more ownership of their lives, and they want to know that, okay, I can shut down at a certain time and not have to look at my phone, my laptop, or check out for any emails, So, but as a gig worker, with that control, I know when to be available and when not to be available. Now, to your question about the commitment and whether they're loyal, I have a different opinion in the sense that for me, the way it is structured and the way it is evolving, it behoves on the gig worker to ensure that, okay, my gig and myself as a brand, and even if I'm working for through the digital platform of a company, that everything that I do speaks for myself as well as my skills, because that is what I'm being sought for. So having skilled people available and being able to also make sure that what they put out there is actually what they exist for, and those are the skills that are highly competitive and are marketable. It's still something that, for integrity, you have to ensure that you have everything in place for you. For quality, those two characteristics are things that gig workers are out there for, in the first instance. So it's very important that we see that, okay, yes, to a certain extent, if you're defining the gig economy, there are different types of them. You have from the knowledge-based gig workers to the service-based gig workers. The knowledge-based are, of course, the more highly professional, independent consultants and management consultants, to the service-based, your regular traders, your caterers, and things like that. So between the spectrum, you will have different types of gig workers. So depending on whom that target is, the structure, the framework, the charter that drives them, and the principles that guide them is what will determine the level of their commitment, the level of their loyalty, and then the conditions of service that you engage them for. If it's a free agent, yes, that is a bit more fluid. But if you're going through a digital platform, the likes of the Upworks, the Fiverrs, the other digital companies, like even the hill riding companies like the Uber, the Lyft, and what have you. These are digital platform companies that exist as a marketplace to provide such services, a marketplace for exchange of such services and for consumers, be it the corporate consumer or the individual consumer. So in terms of this, people being exposed, that's a review of such are also protected on both sides, because it's a
Okay, we seem to be struggling with network today. My apologies for that. Just to say to the participants, you can drop in your questions in the Q&A section, and then once we're done with the panelists, once we're through with the questions, we can go through those questions in the Q&A. So while we'll wait for Aisha and Esther to join us again, I'll just go over to you, Dr. Joey. Joey, you run a commercial law firm, and by its nature, the legal profession is very conservative. Do you think that the concept of gig economy has a place in legal practice in Nigeria, and do we have the legal framework to support it?
Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you.
Thank you so much, Ose, and thank you to BusinessDay and the ELIRC for inviting me. So it's been very interesting listening to Esther and Aisha talk about what the gig economy is and some of the issues arising. In fact, I've taken some notes that tells me that we will be sort of knowledge-based gig economy workers. And I think that, Aisha talked about the pandemic being something that highlighted the development of the gig economy in Nigeria, and certainly in our profession, that's going to be the case. Kind of like the beginning of this year, we started looking at work from home policy from our law firm, and the response from a number of the senior workers was at the time was, look, we can't really have our colleagues or associates working from home. They might not be able to deliver. They might not be as productive as possible. Well, March comes and we're all forced to work from home. And the reality is that, since March, effectively, we've all been working from home. Our offices are open, but, I was in the office last week and I was the only person there. And so what this, I think, is going to influence even the way in which law firms work, not just this year, but in 2021, and I think it may go even beyond 2021. And certainly looking at that development, looking at that issue, I mean, we did a survey within our organization to say, look, how are we finding this work from home? Are we just as productive? Do we want to go back? And the overwhelming response from our colleagues was they want to continue to work from home. So 93% of our colleagues responded saying they want to work from home. And whilst that may be influenced about the state of pandemic now, but I do think that the culture of working out of the office sort of 5 days a week is likely to change irrespective of the pandemic. And so that's going to be a new culture. And I think that will begin to drive the emergence of some form of gig economy within the profession. When you add this to some of the economic challenges that we're currently facing, what's happening is that the nature of the work or the flow of the work is not, the pipeline for the work is not the same. And some firms are asking themselves a question, and they've been asking, they've reduced salaries, they've cut down staff. They're asking themselves the question, do we still have to have this number of people on staff template? And the way that the law firm may be evolving is that you have a core group of staff. Whilst you have that core group, perhaps at the partner level, some at the senior associate, and a few juniors in certain areas, what will happen, or what may happen, is that you're going to have you're going to be drawing in expertise from a number of people who do not necessarily work within your law firm. And that is some kind of gig economy culture. And when you look at the RPC, and the RPC is the rules of professional conduct which govern law firms and the practice of a law in Nigeria, certainly within the law firm structure, there's nothing that requires you to have all your associates be full-time employees within the organization. There is a kind of challenge. There is a challenge for another nature of gig economy, which is the platform-based workers. And there is a limit to your ability to actually put yourself out on a platform that is not owned or run by a lawyer or a law firm. And that's going to be a challenge in the development of that form of gig economy. But I dare say that within the next 2, maybe 3 years, what you're going to find is that the nature of the law firm will begin to evolve. And our focus will be on, in many ways, very similar to external counsel, making sure that we help the clients to get the kind of expertise necessary to satisfy or to fulfill the tasks that they want. So your skill set as a law firm partner will be to have the networks, to have the relationships with those associates that you require to do the work that your clients require from you. And so in many ways, it's going to be client-led, and it will lead to, I think, a more agile legal profession, and probably even one that is more cost-effective. And I think I have done my 5 minutes.
Thank you, Dr. Joey, from the very conservative law practice point of view, and we're happy to have those perspectives as well. And just to buttress your point about people not wanting to go back to work, I was reading another report by McKinsey, which says that they had decided on their own in New York to have their office space because they didn't think there was any need to have as much people work from the office. And that was a massive savings from them. And I think going forward, we will see a lot more of that happening. Thank you very much, Dr. Joya. Just to buttress your point, that was. Now, over to you, Nkiru. Interesting. You've done quite a bit of work around providing support via mentoring for women. And as an author, your best-selling book, The Pressure Cooker, which I recommend to everyone, I think I've read about twice now, details the everyday challenges of the working woman. Do you think that the emergence of gig economy is an opportunity for women to find their voice and space in the world of work? And could this be a platform for women to find that elusive balance between work and life?
Thank you, Ose, and BusinessDay, Ose and team, and BusinessDay for having me. It's a true pleasure and honor. And I'll just delve, right straight into it. And I'm glad that you've called it elusive, because to be honest, I mean, if I could correct myself in my book, I said to everyone that work-life balance, was possible if you could pay the price. But having written that and come through a couple of things, I kind of feel that I respond differently. But I think first with the advantage, entrepreneur.com tells us via research that they've done that the entire work from home and the gig economy has helped women increase their earning power. And I feel like that's a positive. I believe also that it's helped women with work-life integration. And by that, I mean kind of blending your work with your life. I know people who have come through to say that just the comfort of being around their family has helped them improve, you know, their outcomes. But I think with everything that has an advantage are also what I'll call the challenges. And with the challenges, it's just getting women to be more definitive, just in terms of what their demands are out of the system. And I know that when you say you want perhaps a 3-day paying job, I suppose that women need to get their minds around how much you demand and all of the demands that you make, you know, on the system. But I think the short response is yes, it's reportedly improved earning paths for female. Secondly, I can testify that the work-life integration is improving the outputs of women. I also think that there's a place for honing further skills for women. And by that, I mean, the gig economy is not static, it's dynamic. And with it being dynamic is also the big question of how women use technology. I found lots of research that show that the real skills that are required, and now I mean by hard skills, not soft skills, that are required for a future of work that supports a gig economy are women's skills are in short supply in that regard. So I feel like there should be a deliberate attempt to grow skills for females so that they are able to adapt and use technology in a way that improves their outcomes. Thanks, Ose. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Nkiru. Very, very great insights from you. And the point you make about work-life integration sinks home, because truly work-life balance seems to give the impression that you could actually strike a balance between work and life, which is next to impossible. And so work-life integration is more of a fluid concept that means you can actually move your work around life and blend your life with your work. And that for me works. So thank you very much for that insight.
True pleasure.
Yeah. So, Balale, this is for you. Consider the future of work is here with us. I think if we're talking about gig economy, the future is really here with us. What skills do you think are critical to first be able to get roles and to succeed as well as stand out in the gig economy?
Okay, so I think that question was for me.
Yes, for you.
Yes. Okay. So basically, as we all know, I mean, the gig work at this point, most of the focus is on results. Everyone wants you to deliver. If you look at it in comparison to the full-time employees or employment, the focus is, okay, you know, it's traditional. So you come to work, you have your KPIs, there's a process in place and all. But with the gig workers, most of them are short-term employment, short-term contracts. So it's all on deliverables. So when we're talking about the skills, we're looking at both the soft and the hard skills. What kind of soft skills do we need? What are the key skills that you need at this point? You need some emotional intelligence, you need creativity. Sorry, my light goes off when I don't move for a bit. You need emotional intelligence, you need creativity, you need agility, you need people skills, you need active learning, you need critical thinking. Those are the skills that you need on the job, because you need to be able to deliver on results. You need to be able to come up with systems and processes that will add to the bottom line. And when we talk about the hard skills, I know, I think it was Esther or Aisha that spoke about the engineers as well. I think Esther mentioned that even now the gig workers are actually even coming up. I mean, we're having more technical people as well. So you also need to be able to come up with more technical skills. And what are the roles that are out now? Most of these roles are towards automation, are towards artificial intelligence, are towards robotics. So what are we coming up with? What kind of skills? How are we harnessing those skills? The millennials at this point, no one wants a job for life. Everyone wants something that, oh, I'll do it for a few years and I move on. I don't want a retirement plan. I just want to be able to add value. So what are those skills? So as I said, I've spoken about the critical thinking, the logic, and all, and most importantly as well, how do we now key in into the future, which is automation? What skills do I need? So do I want to go into the softer parts of it? Do I want to go into the technical parts of it? How do I prepare myself for the opportunities as they come into the future? And as a gig worker now, most times, we spoke about employee loyalty. Yes, there might not be full loyalty, or you might think there might not be full loyalty, but at this point, it's a two-way thing. Because a traditional worker, your employer owns your skills, he owns all your resources and everything you come up with. But as a gig worker, it's what are you delivering? You deliver and you move on, you deliver and you move on. Integrity is key. You need to be able to channel those and make them always come back to you if there are other projects or other deliverables as it comes up. So it's very important that as a gig worker, you harness both your hard and your soft skills. You're seen as someone that has integrity, and you're able to deliver as at when due. Because now no one is going to follow up with you to say, oh, where is that work that you've done? You're going to be paid for the services you deliver. If you do not deliver those services, you will not be paid. And if you do not get paid, then there's no essence, because you're not getting paid, you're not able to meet your commitments, then everything is lost. So I think it's very critical and important for us to be able to focus on what we're delivering and what competencies that would ensure prepare us for this gig economy. And I'd like to thank the panelists and most importantly this day, and your team also for this opportunity. I mean, I've learned quite a few things, even from listening to Nkiru, Aisha, and every other person that's spoken. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bolani. Very, very grateful for the insight on the skills. I noticed the distinction between the hard skills and the soft skills, and emotional intelligence, and the technical skills as well. And I think it's very key that this is brought to the fore as well. And just to, the interesting thing that I was just reading up on gig economy a couple of weeks back. Funny enough, even before we thought about this topic. And there was this illustration between a musical gig and work. So as a musician, you have a gig and you're done with it and you're off. And so that was the comparison with having the one-off work and then you're gone. So it's quite interesting how the world of music has now merged with the world of work in coming up with a name for the new reality that we see today. Thank you very much, Polani, for that. Chisom, you are part of the millennials, and you and other millennials are one of the major drivers of this new norm in terms of gig work and remote working. From a millennial employee point of view, what would you be expecting from your employer in terms of work patterns? And being a lawyer, would such atypical work patterns be something that would make you stay in a job or take a new job? And finally, the other aspect of this will be, do you think that the transition from standard work patterns will have a negative effect on the ILO's decent work agenda?
Thank you very much, Ose. Like you rightly said, the millennials are actually forming or shaping the future of work. According to a report by Forbes, I think by 2025, millennials will be accounting for at least more than 50% of the workforce, which means the workforce is most likely going to be the way millennials actually want it to be. Now, as a millennial and as a lawyer as well, the key word or the key term that I'll be looking for in any workplace or where I am currently is flexibility, which is one of the key factors of a gig economy. So believe me, in some workplaces, you find very rigid corporate structures, and this is not something that millennials want to work with. Millennials want a little bit of independence, a little bit of control, a little bit of opportunity to maintain their work-life balance. So as at this time last year, if you had asked many employers if they would let their employees work from home, you would hear a no that is almost close to God forbid. But here we are, and it's working. And people are actually doing it. And you realize that it is actually not as bad as it seems. Yes, there may be a little hiccups here and there, but it's an ongoing process. So I want to be able to get up in the morning, do my work, and when I'm done, I go ahead to live my life, do other things I want to do. In some workplaces, as at today, you find that some employees are not even allowed to go home when they finish their task. They have to wait until their boss leaves. So if I'm done with my work around 4 p.m., is there any reason why I should sit in the office until such time when my boss decides to leave? I can be able to go ahead. And this is one thing that's going on now. A lot of employees have, lawyers have side gigs, or side jobs, as you might say. So they want to be able to have the opportunity to pursue their dreams, to get to what the level that they also want to, or to get to the level of achievement that they want beyond their 9 to 5. So in sum, as a millennial, what I would want is a workplace that mirrors a gig economy. But then, of course, with a little bit of a traditional work structure. Now, in terms of the ILO decent work agenda, the gig economy, yes, provides what one would ordinarily construe as a level of independence and flexibility and control. But in the long run, sometimes you find that there is a little bit of a disadvantage because you find that there is a lack of protections that the full-time employment would ordinarily offer you. So why do I say this? The ILO decent work agenda is built on 4 main pillars, which is employment creation, equal employment opportunity for all, fundamental rights, labor standards, and rights to work, and also social protection and social dialogue, which also promotes constructive discussions between workers and their employers. Particularly with regards to this social protection, it is not something that you find. In fact, from a report that I read, Uber drivers, for them to be able to even make the minimum wage, have to put in more hours than what you would ordinarily obtain in a traditional work environment. So you find that in some gig economy arrangements, that the workers are actually in some form of employment relationship disguised as an independent contractor or freelance relationship that, however, provides the employer or the person who is engaging them with an opportunity not to provide the usual social protection that you will find, or which was the dream of the ILO decent work agenda, which has now brought us to the stage where we are now, where you find some freelancers and independent contractors going back to the courts to now try to enforce what is ordinarily obtainable from employment relationships. So you find that what people are really looking out for at the end of the day is an employment or a working relationship that mirrors a gig economy and a traditional workforce that also is in line with the ILO decent work agenda, especially in terms of rights to work, rights at work, and social protections, amongst others. So at the end of the day, you even find that at National Industrial Courts, it looks at some of the work structures that is in place today and have been disguised as freelance relationship or independent contractor relationship. And what the court now does is that when it looks at this relationship and it does not actually appear to be what it seems, the court can actually recharacterize these relationships as employment relationships. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chisom. Thank you for raising that point. And just to further push the topic to the fore, according to ILO, the rise of the gig economy poses risk to societies at large. When, for example, it becomes the only economy replacing groups of employees with full-time jobs with workers who are not protected by labor laws or eligible for benefits and social security. And again, the point you make about National Industrial Court, yes, National Industrial Court has always had a view based on the principle of primacy of fact.
Absolutely.
If what it is in practice is not really what it is on paper, they look at substance and not form, and then could actually say this is really not a freelance but an employment relationship. And so we all have to be careful in the implementation of some of these gig economic work patterns, because if the idea is to actually not create an employment relationship, the way it's implemented could actually lead the court to actually then state that this is really an employer and employee relationship. Thank you very much, Chisom. Quite
thank you.
Input. So we've talked quite a bit about gig work, and one of the biggest enablers of the gig economy is ICT. And you know, this is where you come in. What are the potential risks as can be expected, being that a whole lot of the gig economy will be based on ICT, artificial intelligence, right, robotics, and all that? What are the potential risks for organizations? How can they manage this risk? And from a security point of view, please, we would like to hear from you.
Thank you, Ose, and thank you to the team for inviting me. We all agree that the future of work is changing, and the most important thing for everyone is that there's access to information from the people that you're working for or working with. So assuming you're even moonlighting, or you're in gig economy, or you're in traditional office work, you have access to information. And this information is usually the very vital asset of any economy or any organization or any individual. Now, this exposure to information has its own challenges. Because it's enabled by the internet, it's exposed to a lot of threats and vulnerabilities. And these threats are out of the control of the people who have custody of this information. So assuming you've got information, where you have access to information of a company that you're working for, or like the MTN organization that takes on engineers and all of those things, all of those people, they've got access to such information which ordinarily they wouldn't have access to. So you're exposed to vital information, which is the asset of the companies and assets of work. Now, there are challenges because of these exposures. You've got internet threats, phishing. Sometimes you have, even from the banking aspect for individuals, you've got people who get emails asking you to click on this, to do this and do this, and once you do that, your personal information is taken, and it could be used by anybody. This could be your bank details, it could be your personal identification information and all of that. Sometimes also you have infrastructural problems, like you can't be on the internet and the infrastructure fails you and it goes off, and there's a hacker around who is privy to your platform. That also could expose these assets that you have as information. And then sometimes there are malwares. Of course, there are bad people. You could have organizations purchase softwares that are not really very good for them. So once they use those things, you're exposed to unauthorized access to your information and all of that. These threats don't actually stop with organizations. They go to individuals, they go to governments, they go to a lot of entities. So, and sometimes you having access to one information exposes you to another information and exposes you to, so you have a web of information in your custody, which once there are vulnerabilities to one or threats to one of them, he exposes the other ones. So it's like a web. You need to also be able to reinforce this, and to do this, for this kind of new economy, this gig economy, it may be difficult for individuals who are freelancing to be able to take steps to reinforce this risk. Most of the times, it is these organizations who have custody of this information who would have to take steps to be able to say, we don't want this threat, or to reduce the threats. You may not really eliminate the threats. So most organizations are advised to have like an information security team with defined roles and responsibilities so that when there are issues, you have reporting lines, you have people who are responsible for doing what, and you have people who you can consult if there are threats and all of that. Then you also have to have some policies. There are sometimes that you have to have issue-specific policies for your office to say that if you're using your own device, assuming your office allows you to bring in your own device, which you take on information from the office and it exposes those information, you need to take such steps to be able to use those devices. Like it has to be such devices that are within a certain age so that you can update as and when due. Then you also have to have, sometimes you also have specific policies as per what kind of information you're exposed to. So most people are exposed to information on a need-to-know basis. So if you don't have any business with particular information, it is the duty of the information security team to make sure that such information don't get to the hands of the people who don't need to know about them. In doing that, you limit your vulnerabilities so that threats cannot get to certain information. And then sometimes you also have to have trainings for organizations. So you set up trainings. Most of the times you need to, because technology is a bit off for some people, you need to have some kind of user-friendly trainings to make people interested in the trainings. You know, you have to have posters explaining things that you need to do. For example, turn off your system when you're doing this. When you see an email, please don't click on it. If it is not a work email while you're in the office, don't use the office systems to go on social media like Facebook and all of that, because you expose yourself to a lot of things. Then you also have policies in the office which says every 3 months you have to change the work password for each of the employees. Even if the person is a freelancer and has access, you need to change the person's password after every 3 months, after every 2 months, depending on the frequency that suits you. Then sometimes you have to know that you have your password has to have certain characteristics. You can say 2 letters, capital letter, a symbol, and all of those things. So by the time you combine all those things, once there's any kind of intrusion, it blocks it, because this is not what we need to know. Then offices also have to have, because sometimes these challenges are not really threats from outside. They can be from the inside as well. And like we all had COVID, you need to have such policies that can give you cover, assuming there are situations where you cannot come to the office to work. So or there's a disaster. So you have like a plan to recover whatever systems you need to be able to serve your clients, or be them as a engineering firm or law firm or whatever firm it is. So what it means is that as you set up your office and set up this work on the internet, set up your internet working space, you need to be able to say, what if a situation happens, fire outbreak or something? How do we assess our information not to be able to disrupt work totally? So all these controls have to be in place. If not, you find a situation where some people are thrown off balance, because there's a fire outbreak or something, and they can't retrieve any document. And sometimes you have lawsuits following, you have money missing, and all of those things. So all these things are the things that you have to really work towards and galvanize to be able to work in the future. And even if you have to employ freelancers or have moonlighters work for you, you also need to protect your asset, because any organization that loses its main asset, which is information, normally would go under.
Thank you very much, Chinelo, for that. And I think it's clear and present danger that information is key, and that we must try whatever we can to protect the information, because our work is basically information, especially for us who are lawyers. What we work with is information, and we have people's very confidential information, from wills to conveyancing documents and transactional documents. It's very key that we have a very strong internet protection system. And so we have a couple of questions. So I will now allow Fulabi to take on the questions in the Q&A, and then get last words from the panelists, please. Fulabi, over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Ose. Again, a very good afternoon, everyone. It's been quite an engaging session. A lot of rich, penetrating insights into what I'll probably say is the buzzword, the gig economy. All right, very quickly, before I get into the questions drop, maybe I should start with one or two that I think came off in a number of things that have been said today. Now, the gig economy has actually been rightly described as some phenomenon that's not evolved. It's happened as a revolution. You had industrial age, and then manufacturing happened, which was in response to the prevailing economic circumstances, human workforce, and then the gig economy or the information age has now come into play. Now, one thing that's characterized that, and which we cannot deny, is the age of the robot, is the age of the machine enabling work, howbeit through minimal human efforts. Now, my question to all, and I'll probably leave it to everyone to perhaps have a bite, is: do you think we're ready? And close to that is that, do you think the human workforce is endangered? Are we going to wake up one day and really discover that, you know what, the machine has taken over, or the machines have taken over, sorry, and we don't have a place anymore? Nkiru and Bolali, I don't know, what's your take?
For me, I actually even think that the advent of the machines and automations will create more job opportunities than before, because we will now have to, it's talking about reskilling and retooling for the future. So the jobs that we have now, some of them will no longer be in existence in the next 10 years. There was a World Economic Forum survey, I think sometime in 2018 or 2019, that came up with that the jobs, some of the jobs we have now will no longer be in existence in the next 5 to 10 years. And that was in 2019, before COVID. So now look at what COVID has done now. So I'm sure by the time there's another survey at the end of this year, or maybe early next year, the dynamics would have changed totally. So we'll now have newer jobs, newer roles, obviously with automation. So yes, the jobs will change. So everybody has to be ready and willing to reskill, to retool, and to improve on their skills, most importantly. So yes, things will change, but it will not be that people will lose their jobs. But if you are not willing and you're not flexible, then you'll be out of work. That's one. Then on the other hand, you had asked the first question was something about the gig economy, that is it here to stay? Well, maybe it's the nomenclature that is here to stay. Everybody has had a side also. Even as a child, I knew my mother used to do something by the side. Her parents used to do things by the side. Even when I was in university, I did things by the side. So it's just now that we've put a name to it, which is gig or also or whatever it is. So yes, maybe in the formal structure, now employers might be willing to accommodate it, because for them also it will save costs in the long run. So there's a whole lot of dynamics that we have to think about, that we have to factor in, but definitely I think it's here to stay.
Thank you for that. Sorry, any other contribution?
Yes,
I mean,
I was wondering, okay.
Esther, do you want to go? You can, actually.
No, go ahead. I'll come after you. Go ahead.
I mean, I think just listening to the question made me remember, and I work in financial services, when the automated teller machines were coming, and there was a lot of fright, and it was the same conversation we were having then. And there were conversations such as, The call center will be wiped out, there will be no jobs, life would be tough. And I believe that an average ATM needs at the minimum 2 to 3 people, to manage it, from the asset custodian to the technical guys. So I kind of agree with Bolanle that the truth is, realistically, there are gonna be job losses. We saw the reality of the robots that were supporting with dispensing medication and the robots that were supporting with serving food to the patients who were in isolation. So I think it's important for us not to kid ourselves. There will be job losses, but there are also opportunities, and the opportunities for those who are ready. I remember chatting to someone in data science, and he was saying to me, I'm an inventive data scientist. And I thought we were data scientists. When did we arrive at the prefix, supporting inventive data scientists? And what he was saying to me simply was, I'm not the data scientist who data comes to for me to solve a problem. I'm the one who decides the type of data that I need, to either design a solution or solve a problem. So I think the most important thing for us is to be flexible, adaptable, and take a long-term view in terms of the skills that we develop, so that when this happens, as the ATMs that we now think are normal happen, we're ready to adapt. So I think that would be my view for Labi, and I know Esther was itching to say something.
Okay, all right, let me.
Yes, thank you, Nkiru and Bolanle. You have said exactly what I was intending to say. The only other bit I'd like to add is that when you asked for Labi whether this gig economy is here to stay, I shared with you the example of my organization. We already have, as one of our staffing arrangements, the gig economy, all the different types of, categories of people that I mentioned, whether, at the lower levels or even at the more senior levels, had to fill positions, talents that are difficult to find, internally, maybe because they are not yet at the readiness level. So the gig economy is the future of work. It is the work of today. It is the work of the future. Then when you say, robotics and so on and so forth, I think it's been overhyped. Certainly, as my co-panelists have mentioned, there will be some job losses, but there are now new jobs that are being created that require human skills that robots do not possess. Empathy, compassion, engagement, ability to show care. Even when you try to infuse those into the robots, there is a limit to how far they can go before the wires start pulling out. So yes, indeed.
Well, if I may probably just slightly disagree with you there. I mean, two things. The new robots being developed, empathy is one of those things that they've now focused on. And you might probably just want to do again. Look those things up.
Yeah, I know that for Labi, that was the reason I said, that's the reason I said, yes, you can build that into the robots, but at some point, the wires will pull off.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when I mention whether we're endangered or not, I mean, it's absolutely right that the human element would always still be there to put in a lot of those things. But I think gradually, even the robots, they are beginning to cross the line and getting to do everything without human assist. And the UK Economist reported, was it 2 days ago, the whole editorial was written without human assist by robots. The editorial was written without human assist by a robot. So they're actually gradually coming to that phase. And I think with time, it would basically get to, our own work as well. Now, still along that line, because yes.
Before you go on,
yes.
For the future of work, AI is there, yes, but I don't think people actually lose their work. I think what is required is for people to reskill, because even for that editorial, the editorial that was written on the economy, there were inputs for people to say this is what it is before the robot started working on it.
Yes.
If you read As the Future Catches You, you will understand that even with AI, the human factor. So there will be more work for the humans who have the required skills. So you need to look at the future of work and reskill yourself, like unbundle, what do I need to do? Even as a lawyer, I need to be able to to have technology at the back of my mind when I'm dealing with clients, when I'm working for people. Of course, recently with the COVID, a lot of courts went online. Now, if you're a lawyer who is if you're a litigation lawyer who keeps saying, I don't have anything to do with technology, I can't do this, I won't do this, and then it comes to a point where you would have to now deal with the courts virtually. What do? If you don't have the skills, you're off work. So other people who are coming up who do the proper things, you know, to be able to match up with this future, will get the jobs that you have dropped. So I think it's basically a matter of being able to reorganize and reskill. And then you can fall in line with the AI. Yes, AI is here. Just today they were reporting at that US, they've acquired some AI dogs for their defense. How it's going to work, nobody knows, but they have taken on that challenge. So, but people are going to man these dogs. People are going to be imputing information into these dogs to be able to work and all of those things. And these people are the people who have skills, and these people will remain relevant in work.
Fantastic. I mean, great perspective there. I quite totally agree with you on that. Well, I mean, going through the chat box, I mean, the question and answers posted, I mean, the questions posted, a question has been asked that how will the quality of infrastructure, bandwidth, and all that impact the prospects for gig economy in Nigeria? I mean, infrastructure challenge and all of that we're dealing with.
Right. I think I answered part of that question, and Esther will answer the other, because there are some enablers. You know, MTN is one of the enablers, and you see, infrastructure fails us everywhere in the world. But I think it's more here in Nigeria, because generally we have infrastructure deficit in Nigeria. So it's more difficult to deal with it. Yeah, it's very important. Sometimes I'm on a Zoom meeting and it just goes off, and I'm off for about 10 minutes and the meeting goes on elsewhere in the world. But because the infrastructure here cannot support the internet activity, it fails me, and that's it. So I think it is very important, and it's something that we have to start looking at again. You know, all the service providers and enablers need to also be able to develop, or let me say, need to be able to develop some financial muscle to be able to move on, you know, like their financing of infrastructure. MTN was working with some Chinese companies to develop infrastructure. I don't know how far that has gone. It entails office of the NSA, causes exposure of our national security to this Chinese. It entails a lot of organizations, NCC, NSA, and all of those things. So it's a situation where everybody has to get involved. It's the future, and there's nothing we can do about it. Families now hold virtual meetings, virtual birthdays, virtual weddings, and all of those things, virtual work. So for us to be able to move ahead, we need to work on that infrastructural development.
And if I may add to that, Falabi, I think that is the reason, you know, this particular topic that, you know, we're discussing is very important, and the importance of shifting that discourse, not even just what the Law Crest is doing on Business Day, but everywhere. Because somebody mentioned earlier on, I think it was Shisom, who was saying that sometime last year, if somebody had, you know, mentioned the issue of work from home, I mean, even if you looked into a crystal ball, you would have told the person who saw that there will be a large-scale work from home in 2020 to go back, sleep, and wake up, because it would not happen. But that's where we're at right now. So once we realize that this gig economy is not just moonlighting, it's not just side hustles, but that it is a big and vibrant part of the economy and has come to stay, and that it accounts for a large proportion of the economy because the traditional jobs are disappearing anyways, then all the multiple parties that must be involved in putting in place the right infrastructure, whether it's in terms of bandwidth, the question talked about bandwidth, but it goes beyond bandwidth. It goes into policies that need to be in place. For instance, there are some emerging discussions around unionization for the gig economy because they want their compensation to be as close as possible to the traditional roles. They are talking about good jobs versus bad jobs, a gig economy jobs, good job, bad jobs. Are they eliminating good jobs? All those kinds of discussions have to come to the fore so that whether the private sector, the public sector, the not-for-profit sector, all the different parties need to, realize and recognize the infrastructure and the enablers for this gig economy and start putting the right investments in place.
So just to quickly piggyback on what Esther had said, there was a recent survey in America that looked at the gig economy and found out that about 36% of the US workforce are freelancers, and which is about 57.3 million people. And they've actually contributed roughly about 1.4 trillion to the economy on an annual basis. And this was pre-COVID. And the furthermore went on to say that 63% of those people actually chose to be freelancers or gig workers. So it wasn't out of necessity and all that, it was a matter of personal choice. So in the coming years or coming months, we'll find out that more people will enter into this data, into these statistics. That's it.
Fantastic, fantastic. Gig economy, as we will probably all agree, connotes quite a number of things. And it's equally very important to quickly look at maybe some of the buzzwords that have happened today. We've had moonlighting, and we have had situations where the outsourced staff, those who work on the digital platforms and just provide services without being necessarily primarily engaged by whoever they're providing it to. They readily come in and fit in very well into the gig economy. So the question now, Dr. Dufulo and Chisom, let's look at the legal perspective now. What do you think, or how do you see the law courts, the labor courts, classifying those individuals, those you call moonlighters, the freelancers? How do you see the courts as between independent contractors or employees or whoever it is they're providing services for? And because it's also very important to know, so that, for example, we may perhaps begin to look at things of job security and a bit of workers' benefits and protection that they should be, or they ordinarily would be entitled to if they were to be classified as one. So, let's look at the legal perspective. What do you think? How do you ordinarily classify these individuals? Do you think we would even have any problem with classification?
Let
Dr.
Chisom take this.
Chisom, okay, all right. Okay. Chisom.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I would start by saying that the determination of an employment relationship is ordinarily guided by the fact of what was actually agreed between the parties and what was agreed and performed between the parties, and not just what they put into writing. So as like you said, if the court looks at, so what the court does is that it relies on what is known as a primacy of facts. In other words, if it looks at the nature of the relationship between the supposed freelancer and the employer, and it is such that it's supposedly disguised to enable the employer avoid his certain obligations to the freelancer, then the court can say, look, the nature of this relationship is actually not an independent contractual relationship. For instance, I mentioned earlier the recent uprising among Uber workers. So, and in several cases, you've seen Uber employees go to court. In fact, recently there was a judgment in California in their favor, and the UK appeal court held the same thing. Sometime last year. A Nigerian Uber driver actually went to court. Unfortunately, he was not able to prove his case. But the court's review of the definition of a worker seems to have given a little bit of a hint on what could be obtainable. So actually, so in determining the nature of relationship between the freelancer and the employer, as the case may be, that's in the ordinary terms of the word, it's really in terms of what is the nature of their relationship, the extent of control, the type of services, the general facts surrounding it, and not just whether you write it down saying this person is an independent contractor. That is no longer enough. So the court looks at the actual relationship to be able to determine that factor. Thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic. I think that was a brilliant one. Thank you very much for giving us that perspective. And going further, still on that, now with what we've actually evolved into now, which I earlier said is a revolution. I mean, we just wake up to realize that this is where we are now. How do we think that the traditional work setting would deal with the flex? Around with the traditional model of 9 to 5, even before the new normal, or let's leave out the new normal. Also, perhaps look into the hours, and I mean, that's across board. How sufficiently flexible are we to really believe that? I mean, the work setting today believes it's no longer the 9 to 5 work model. I mean, the hours are quite different now.
Well, if we are being honest, in many workplaces, at least in my experience as a lawyer, there is no such thing as a 9 to 5. So, but what I'm allowed to do between my supposed 9 to 5 is what the gig economy is all about, really. So if you say 9 to 5, so in the early days, what you have is a workplace that puts a lot of emphasis on the physical presence of the employee, being present in the workplace. Even if you're not doing anything, you just need to sit on your desk and the employer wants to see you. But the gig economy and the flexibility that you're looking at today gives the employee the opportunity, even from home on wherever they are, to deliver on what they want to do and then go ahead to do other things. And then, but then this requires a little bit of trust, which I think at this point is still lacking amongst employers and employees. So I think it's a gradual process, and we are getting there because COVID-19 has pushed us into that situation where employers are forced to now rely on that trust. So now that we are here, I realize I am quite effective from home. And for someone like me that lives in Lagos, I look at my commute time, the hours I spend in traffic and all that. I could use it to do things that are more valuable. So if I'm delivering value to my employer, is there any reason why I need to be physically or need to go through that hurdle of being physically present in the office where I am giving you what you want? And I also have the opportunity to maintain my work-life balance and also, my sanity. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Well, yeah, I'd like to speak to that as well.
Okay, please.
I think so excellent points by Chisom. And what I should say is that there is an evolution of, or there has to be an evolution of your expectations from your employees going forward. And so instead of just focusing on when the employee comes to the office and when they leave the office, the focus has to move to what is the output that they are delivering. And so it places the responsibility on the employer to know what exactly you want, how you want it, when you want it, in a realistic way. And so there will be, speaking as a partner in the law firm, there will be an evolution of the systems that we use to evaluate. There's going to be an evolution of how we interact with our associates. It may be that on a weekly basis, you're setting the task for the week, you're giving them the timelines, and you're talking about the quality that you expect to see at the end of the day, and then you check it at the end of the week. It might be things like that will begin to happen.
Yes, And just to add to, okay, please go ahead.
Additionally, for Labi, as the future happens on us, and as things go forward, working remotely has its own strategies and methods. There are ways that an office can check if you've clocked in. So in addition to your output, there's a minimum hour that you're expected to work each day. So you clock in and it's checked from the back end that you have clocked into work and that you're doing what you're supposed to do. Then it is matched to your output as well, to be able to say, okay, even as you have clocked in, see what you have been able to deliver, you know? So it's not only in, okay, I can do whatever I like for 6 days in a week, and on the 7th day, I sit down and I jumble all the things I want to jumble, and I say, I have made an output. And also, it's also good for you to be able to check the development of the people working with you. Now, if you give me something to you give me tasks for the week, and I'm able to go to an associate or a senior who is a friend, and I say, I've got this work, please, can you help me do it? And now you have employed somebody who is not capable of doing work. So all these kinds of strategies of checking the clocking, the hours somebody has clocked in, the output you're bringing out, and all of those things helps you to also check the quality of work that is coming and to be able to match it to the person who is supposed to do the work. Are you able to do this work? Do you go to another person to do it? Are you really worthy of employment in that particular sector? So all these things have to come, but I mean, it's all like new to us and everything. So it's going to evolve, as it were.
Fantastic. I don't think I could have put it any better. I think the common thread from the contribution so far is that, look, there should probably be standard way of measuring deliverables, and then that is maybe more of what we look out for, and not necessarily the work hours. I recall some 3-4 years back, and a partner from one of the big 4 accounting firm had actually mentioned that one of the ways they started dealing with millennials at work and their own expectation of work pattern was to perhaps just be innovative by creating a flexible hour schedule for them. And it was like, oh, nobody expected you to be at work at 9 a.m. or 8:30, but deliver on all these assignments at particular times and come up with deliverables within those set time. And they were quite surprised at the result within a very short time turned out to be quite productive, because they were getting the results even well before the hours that they had actually given for those deliveries would have turned in. I mean, in most cases, they even gave an example of they were quite used to sending in email, delivering on the work at about 1 a.m. at night, when the traditional work setting will probably expect that you'll be asleep and all of that. So thank you very much for that. Well, one last question that I think I noticed here. I'm just trying to, okay, appeared more of an observation that, so we can gladly say or safely say that the gig economy is like the new normal. A last take on that, I believe that we all agree on that.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
Yes.
So
it is the new normal.
It's the new normal. So maybe
Absolutely.
about time that starts. Yeah, so about time we'll start taking the last word from each and every one. It's been a beautiful session, engaging one. We could have continued, but we clearly do not have all the hours. So let's just quickly run through by taking the last word. Nkiru, do you want to have a bite first?
Yes, and thanks for putting me on the spot, Falabi. But seriously,
Yes.
I think that what this whole conversation around gig economy and future of work has done is for us to mystify technology. And I want to leave everybody with a statement that says that, I mean, the outcomes we get from technology is in the manner that we use it. And technology in itself is only an enabler. That's not all of it. And therefore, when we think about the gig economy and how we improve our outcomes, it's important that whether it's digital literacy or whether it's acquiring, like my young person said to me in the office, inventive data scientist skills, but just things that would help us optimize that outcome, bearing in mind that we're the ones in control. I'd like to stop there for Labi to give others time.
Fantastic, fantastic. Thank you very much. Well said, very well said. Esther? Hi, Esther.
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, indeed.
Okay, please go ahead.
So, according to Diane Moka here, I read a book, that she wrote. Brilliant book, it's titled The Gig Economy. And I think that if we can get it, it's even on Audible or Amazon, would really learn a lot from it. And she says that the future of work is based on work, not on jobs. And that really is what this gig economy is all about. It is about work that is, interesting, that has meaning, that, meets the preferences of people, for autonomy, for empowerment, for, flexibility. And the earlier all of the multiple stakeholders in this discussion started to embrace, the idea and the concepts that it is here to stay and put in place policies and systems, across the entire spectrum that will enable, the gig economy to thrive, the better for everybody and even for the giggers, as they are called. Thank you.
Fantastic. Giggers, as they are called. Thank you so much, Esther, for that. And talking about putting all that structure in place to enable that, and I would imagine that Chinelo will probably want to assure us that cybersecurity is one of those. Please, your last word on this. Chinelo, please.
Yes, please. I'm actually interested in cybersecurity policies in Nigeria, cybersecurity framework and policies. As it stands now, we really don't have a good framework that can carry the future of work. And then aside from cybersecurity, you also need to understand that to enable this gig economy to actually work well, we need to change the framework of the labor law. So it's in the interest of everyone, cybersecurity people, lawyers, technology, everybody, to be able to come together to see what can be done to review the legal framework for labor law. Because I mean, even if I'm a freelancer, there should be a minimum wage I expect, and there should be minimum treatments expected. And then if I'm failed anyhow, I should have recourse to law and in such a manner that is defined and accessible by law.
Fantastic. Defined and accessible by law. I sure hope that. Dr. Adefulu, what's your take on that? Your last word. Thank you so much. Let's have you.
Thank you. Thank you once again for inviting me. Just to say that I think law firms have to get ready to evolve. I mean, we've been saying this for a long time, and many people think that we're just saying it. But the reality is that the client is going to make more demands on us, and they're going to expect a lot of flexibility in their demands. And what we have to do as a law firm is to make sure that we build a culture where we establish relationships, we identify the necessary skill sets that are required to develop or to solve the issues that our clients are facing. And we do this in an efficient and an effective manner. Safe, efficient, and effective manner, meaning ensuring that the kind of data protection, the kind of information security and cybersecurity issues that Chinelo has been talking about are addressed, and ensuring that the employees or the contractors or the gig workers, etc., are in a position to be able to deliver that service to the client, meaning that they are comfortable, that they have the right tools, and that they're working in a great environment. So internet, the kind of computer they're using, etc. And we've got to be thinking about this a lot more. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dekulu. Thanks for that insightful comment. We now quickly ask Aisha, please, what's the last word on this? Hello, Aisha.
Thank you, I'm here. My last word, organizations need to review existing roles, and they need to be able to review them in a way that they can unbundle them, unpack them, and find out which parts of the process or the role can be gigified. In doing that too, that is to say, okay, that perhaps can actually be what a gig worker could do, and certain aspects that certainly it's a full-time employee that needs to do. Now, in doing that, another thing to push for is also the work from home policy. So organizations need to also look at that, policy or framework around it to push more for that, so that it's not just being said, but there are policies that guide and encourage flexibility in the workplace. So yes, some organizations are already doing it, but you don't want to be caught up where it's a case of, oh, your BCP. I mean, if not for COVID-19, quite enough, some organizations were not quite prepared. So it's here to stay, and we really need to look into that before, we have gig workers taking over. But at least for the time that we have our talented people, we need to recognize them and provide that framework that will accommodate them and make them feel valued, so that we also push them and encourage them and provide the opportunity for them to upskill, reskill, and be prepared for that change, so that we may not even need some roles to be filled by gig workers. We have identified the talents that we can reskill, upskill, and have some agreements. And that's where, of course, our legal practitioners come in and can advise even further on, okay, how we can adopt or reclassify them in a certain way. So these discussions should please go on. What I also pointed out is that certainly as we welcome these discussions, a framework should follow. We should have more discussions around this. I look forward to seeing that, an institute, where such discussions will definitely set up the structure for future work. And this is something, again, in Nigeria, we could establish so that, the proliferation of this gig economy, the way the advancement of technology is sweeping us up our feet, we have to have something like that in place, so that it drives that, is transformative, is progressive in doing the research to identify where can we, hone in, develop, and be prepared, so that we're not really, like I said, swept away from our feet completely, but we are prepared. So we should look towards in that direction. Those are my last comments.
Fantastic. Thank you. Great insights there. Indeed, drawing from what you said, there's a need to, organizations should look in policies that would accommodate all of this. And indeed, somebody had actually commented earlier on that indeed there's a need to have a national policy on the gig economy and all that. Chisholm, Marlena perspective, lawyer, and all that. What's your last take on this?
Okay, I think my final word on this, a lot has already been said, but what I would say is that at this point, everybody needs to evolve. The expectation of employers are changing, the expectation of employees are changing, and more importantly, the expectation of the law is also changing. So you realize that even the courts are trying to now stay up to date with what is going on by making reference to international labor standards and making reference to best labor practices, so that you find that in trying to implement or fight against what you believe is the gig economy, you don't lean into what is now maybe declared as unfair labor practices. Then off the back of what Chinelo has said regarding cybersecurity, data management is also becoming a very important issue and gaining traction all over. So in implementing a flexible work environment, you also want to look at your data privacy, data management issues. What do your employees even do with information at their beck and call? So you find out that a lot of employees that are even working from home are working with their personal devices. What happens to this information? In fact, I've been part of a number of client data protection or cybersecurity interviews, and a lot of multinationals are placing a lot of focus on cybersecurity and data protection now. And finally, I think the implementation of a flexible working environment and gig economy will be beneficial for everyone as a whole. So in a handbook, some handbooks I've reviewed in the past, I see policies or clauses that says that perhaps a woman who goes on maternity leave and is unable to resume at the end of her maternity leave will be deemed to have abandoned her employment or will be terminated. So at this point, we should be looking at structures that allow these women to work from home. There is nothing that stops that from happening. It's just a matter of looking inward, looking at how we want to evolve, and looking at how we want to restructure the workplace for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ijeoma. I think that you touch on some quite interesting areas, quite another issue to review and look into at another time. Thank you very much for that. Last but certainly not the least, Bolale, it's a pleasure to have you. Please, I have your last take on this.
Okay, so for me, what I've just realized is the gig economy can be a world of opportunity or a world of potential hardship, depending on how or what skills you're bringing to the table. So everyone that wants to partake in this, they need to be sure that they're ready and they have the skills that you need or that's required to thrive. Because what we need to thrive now is everyone or every employer is looking for someone that's bringing something to the table, that's bringing something different apart from what other people can offer. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you very much, everyone. It's been a great and engaging session today. At this point, I would like to perhaps hand over back to Ose to give us a closing thought and all. Thank you very much. Ose, please.
All right, thank you, Folabi. I think it will be a
Hello, Ose.
Yeah, Folabi, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, please go ahead. Yes.
Right, great. I think at this point, it will
yes,
be
I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yes, that's fine. I think at this point, it would be a disservice for me to say some final words because I think they've covered the field, and anything I will be saying will be will be just for the fun of saying.
Okay.
I don't like to talk for the fun of talking. So
yes.
I think I'll just say thank you to everyone for a fantastic time. Yeah. I think the point has been made is that this has to be an ongoing conversation.
Absolutely.
It cannot be a one-off. We have to continue having this conversation, and we're thankful to BusinessDay for providing this platform. And then we would continue having these conversations. And like the word what we use is a digital conversation, and it will continue. And that I can assure, and I can say to all the panelists that at some point we'll reach out to you guys again to come over for another round of discussions. And we hope you'll be free and happy to join us for this conversation. And so, Chine, are you over to you, please, to finally close this?
Thank you, Mr. Okpeku. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you to the panelists. Thank you to the attendees, the participants. It's been, as Mr. Okpeku and a lot of people have mentioned, a rather rousing session.